As they prepare to meet Kerry again this weekend, 6 months on from All-Ireland final devastation, Donegal are up for discussion. What will the third year under Jim McGuinness bring? Will he stick to his guns, or what will change? Welcome to the Monday Club from the Irish News. I'm Neil Loughran. I'm here with my colleagues Andy Waters and Cahair. Okay, so we're going to talk about all things Donegal today. Obviously, their first return to Croke Park since the nightmare of last July. Cahair, you were there and had an interesting question for Jim McGuinness that went around social media over the weekend. We're going to roll that first, and then we'll come back and have a wee chat about the fallout from that and where Donegal are.
You mentioned the word zonal. Sorry to take you back again, but after the All-Ireland final last year, there was so much talk about the zonal defence and the way they just played that day. And suppose we haven't had a chance to talk to you properly about it in the aftermath. And do you look back on that now and think that you could still win an All-Ireland playing with that style of defence, or do you think that you will have to change?
We just played the last 25 minutes totally.
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm not saying you can't or you can. I'm just asking, do you think
I don't have an opinion. You guys are the ones that have the opinions. Usually opinions. We just do our work. That's the bottom line. I don't listen to anybody. I just coach the team. So there's loads of opinions out there. There's loads of people saying loads of things, but at the end of the day, that doesn't have any impact on my thinking whatsoever. I won't listen to those people. Most of them have never coached at the county level. Most of them have never stood at the sideline. Most of them never won anything as a coach. So I don't take counsel from people. I only take counsel from people that have been there and done that. If it's an All-Ireland winning manager or a top coach, I'll listen to them and I'll listen to what they have to say. But I don't listen to anybody outside of that because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Otherwise, they should be on the sideline competing against me. So there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of talk. We're going to do what we feel is right every single day, and that won't change. And just because 10 people say that's what happened and that's the right thing, that doesn't mean that's going to change our mind the next time round. If we feel it's the right thing to do, that's what we do. That'll always be the case. Cannot have a situation where outside influences impact on your group, and thankfully that has been the case. So that's football, and I learned that a long time ago. There's loads and loads of people with opinions. There's loads of people that have opinions that are having that opinion to have a go with you. There's loads of people that have the opinion because that's what they believe. All of that's in the mix. At the end of the day, you know all that. You don't listen to that. You just get on with going to the pitch, trying to coach the lads and trying to win football games, and that's not going to change in the summer. And if you want to run with that or anybody else want to run away with it, but it will not impact on how we approach games. Definitely not. We played 11 games last year. Nobody was complaining. Do you know what I mean? So we'll decide what's right, and we won't be listening to anybody else.
So fairly forthright stuff from Jim there, Cahair. I don't know if you expected him to go off in that direction. There was definitely a touch of the Eamon Coleman. You boys know nothing.
I'm just waiting for Donegal to type out the entire transcript and put it in the press box. There you have it on big.
Right behind us.
Behind us.
Yeah. So he was basically saying that as we just heard, that he doesn't listen to anybody who hasn't won an All-Ireland or hasn't, coached at a high level, and why would he, I suppose. But there has been so much commentary about that All-Ireland final, about Paddy Clifford's role and the space that he was allowed. Donegal didn't engage with him at all until he came to a certain area. So much damage was done off that. And I suppose the big question that has been hanging over since last July was, will Donegal persist with that zonal defence, which is what you asked him. What's the feeling, about what happened on Saturday night?
I suppose when I was asking, I was nearly thinking in the broader sense as well, even beyond Donegal. Can anybody win in All-Ireland with the zonal defence? Because different teams, like Armagh went to it at different times last year, Derry went to it, loads of teams played that way. Donegal were the best at it. But when you look back at it, Kerry in the end had the best defensive system of anybody's, and it wasn't the same as Donegal's, and it worked better. And so it was nearly, can anybody do it? But within that, obviously Donegal were the team that were best at that, and it's whether they felt then this is still the way to stick. We're going to, batten down the hatches here. We're right. We were right last year. It just didn't fall on the day of the All-Ireland final. And when you go back to the All-Ireland final, you watch it. watched it maybe 8 times now, and every time
You have?
maybe 8 times, like
Tell the truth.
maybe 18 times.
It's a fun Christmas day in the O'Kane household.
You watch it and you keep watching it, and every time you watch it, you think like the first 15 minutes went horrendously wrong. The other 55, the margins were, they were not that.
But that
like,
has to be viewed in the context of the first 15 minutes.
it does, then they got things sorted. Like the first 15 minutes was an annihilation in the middle of the field. As much like so, Donegal had no possession. If you give Kerry the ball, they're going to hammer you. They're going to hurt you. And so it was as much about what was happening in the middle of the field as it was their zonal defence. They just couldn't get their hands on the football to do anything about it. But then within the zonal defence, then it was you were watching Paddy Clifford doing what he was doing, and that was the setup. And even watching it back, like Finbar Rory's role was to match Sean O'Shea pretty much almost, and Sean O'Shea had virtually no influence in the first 20 minutes of the game because Sean O'Shea just stood back and let Clifford do it because they were getting so much space. So like when Donegal came out on Saturday night, everybody was looking to see what they would do. Would they do something different? And they did. They went to what was effectively the way Kerry defended last year. They engaged higher up, and once they picked the man, they stayed with the man for that attack, and that was how Kerry defended. And so you have your 2-man markers at most, maybe your Jason Foley and Michael Murphy in the final last year, and maybe one other, and then everybody else picks up as they come in. And once you pick somebody up, that's you go with him, whereas Donegal were passing men on, and Kerry were able to manipulate them passing them on and how deep they picked them up. So look, will they change? I think they will change to a certain extent, but at the same time, they're not going to go gung-ho full man for man either, because we saw what happened to Rome when they tried that in the semi-final. On the scoreline that day doesn't really tell you the full story. Like Kerry could have 6 goals against Tyrone that day, so and had goal chances, and Paddy Clifford and Sean O'Shea were quiet and both just stayed out of the way of David. Like Jesus, he's got 40 yards of space in there.
Yeah.
He's got them in toast. Just give him the ball. Stay out of his way and give him the ball. And that was what they did. And they're adaptable. So Kerry are the question that nobody has the answer to yet. And like, a lot of criticism for Jim McGuinness for not having the answer. But how, who does? Who does have the answer?
The other thing was, I suppose, you said, like, the first 15 minutes was a write-off for Donegal. The 15 minutes before the throw-in also were a write-off, weren't they? I mean, just, the whole build-up following, this sort of obsession with hydration and warming up, and the way they reacted, to the band parade. They were just wound up far too tight. I think that was another. I just think there were so many things going wrong. They started poorly. Then Gavin White caught them on the hop, didn't he? Nobody expected that. I think Kerry outthought them as well. So whereas they did get a lot of things wrong, you have to as well factor in
what the preparation was, or where their heads were coming into the game.
And Kerry did catch them on the hop by doing things that we didn't expect. And that's a Kerry team that had been, battered from pillar to post, until they sort of caught fire against Armagh, wasn't it? So, I mean, there's so many factors, aren't there, to look at. Like,
I sort of wonder as well. Like, there's obviously with McGuinness, there's so much focus on him and everything. And coming into that final, there was so much focus on 2014 and where it was left last time, and everybody was expecting this great plan, and what's Jim going to come with, what's he been cooking up, and because we all know that like Kerry was all he thought about in 2014. He had been building towards that, same as he had done with Dublin, and whenever they everything was geared towards that, so you sort of expected that Kerry were that was what the end game was, and then it fell so flat. And I just wonder what impact, and maybe we saw a wee bit of the outworkings of that with what he said to you on Saturday night about the what impact that has on his ego, or his and also how he's viewed maybe by Donegal players panel. Like, are they sort of going, well, if we didn't get that right, then is there that? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate in a way. I'm trying not to be overly harsh, and get too carried away on it. But like, would there be that kind of an analysis of it, of how they got it so badly wrong, where Paddy Clifford was concerned?
And again, like, I think the 2014 one, there's no doubt he was outfoxed. You know, Kerry had a game plan that probably nobody saw coming in the way that they played that day, and it mirrored Donegal, and it was really effective. I still go back to last year, and I just think that all of the plans that Donegal would have had were wiped out in those 15 minutes at the start because they were 13-4 down and they'd had no
But how
possession.
could that not have been
Well,
foreseen?
but the 13-4 was largely off Kerry, and again it was something that they'd done against Armagh. It was something they'd done against Tyrone. They were brilliant in the middle of the field, absolutely brilliant in the middle of the field across those 3 games, and they smashed the kick out with such aggression, and they smashed the Donegal kick out. They forced Donegal to kick in their box, and then they smashed the life out of it, and Joe O'Connor just drove out over the top of men to win the ball. And so Donegal couldn't do anything in terms of the possession that they had because they didn't have any in the first 15 minutes. And then when you're 13-4 down, all of a sudden that is a completely different game. You probably never expected to end up in. You expected to be, you know, maybe a couple of points down here and there, but you're in full chasing mode at 13-4, you know, at that point already. So I would think a lot of what they had planned to do, they probably end up not able to do. And I do go back to the one thing I would have felt at the time. I remember writing and saying after the semi-final against Meath, I thought Hugh McFadden had made himself undroppable. And against a team that was going to smash ball at midfield, I really thought they missed him in the All-Ireland final in a huge way. And I just thought that more than anything had the impact on the first 15 minutes, and that allowed Kerry to build basically the lead that, you know, they I wouldn't say they were comfortable, because a couple of times Donegal got it back to 4 points in the second half. Like, it was getting a wee bit edgy, but they always just had that wee bit of comfort. And I don't think Donegal's plans would ever have factored in for all you would plan for. I don't think they ever factored in for being 9 points down after 15 minutes.
No, and the 2-pointer before half time was the nail in the coffin, I think, in terms of any hopes of getting back into it, really. But you know, Andy, I'm wondering, you spoke to Jim McGuinness through the McKenna Cup a couple of times, and obviously, you know, he was talking about, you know, where they start, you know, when you look back on that, and even any interviews you see with Donegal players since that day. Like, I spoke to Kieran Thompson at the McKenna Cup launch, and he could barely bring himself to talk about it. Hardly, you know, Michael Murphy was talking about it at the All Stars, and he looked like he was, you know, still visibly kind of emotional about it all this time on. And I wonder sometimes with Jim McGuinness and Donegal, the two of them combined, are we sometimes guilty of holding him to a higher standard because of who he is and because of what he's done? You know, like, Donegal have 2 All-Irelands. They're not Kerry, they're not Dublin, but everything, because of the success that he's had in the past, everything's scrutinised to a much greater degree than probably is normal, you know, when you look at the other managers operating around the same level, or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, absolutely not. And like, and he did look in complete control all season, or really since he's come back. You know, really in his first time as well. Like, just complete control throughout throughout the season. That's why the whole nervous tension that seemed to surround him at the start was so unusual. I thought, but exactly, you say, like, he has such an aura about him, Jim McGuinness, and everybody, you know, the players are disciples. Bringing back Michael Murphy, no one else could do that. You know, he does bring Donegal to such a high level. But when if we're going to sort of concentrate on last year's All Ireland final, I mean, you've got a Kerry team there that were completely flying, absolutely flying, like, and
just hit their straps at the right
absolutely,
right
like,
time.
and they were just coming roaring at that final, and you know, Donegal just couldn't hold them, like, in the first 15 minutes, or that's probably what they would say. And you know, they got away.
And that's where my thing on Kerry this year is, because Kerry are still seen as above everybody.
Yep.
But so much of what they did in those 3 games in Croke Park was off that real midfield aggression, and that real, you know, the desire they had for that ball last summer was incredible. Like, it was an unbelievable level of aggression, right? And just, can they replicate that? Because that was the whole foundation of everything they did after it. They had so much possession that they were then able to go and dominate games, and go and give David Clifford big scores, and go and, you know, and it all built off that. And if they're, now, bear in mind, they took they lost Dermot O'Connor in the middle of the season, who for me in the league was footballer of the year last year.
I
He
just
was
went
flying.
out, like I was at that game in I think Killarney, wasn't it, against Cavan when he went off. Kerry were going nowhere then. Like, I mean, Cavan pushed them all the way in that game. You know, which is, it just makes it all the more remarkable. Like
Yeah, that was just
Donegal
after the
wouldn't
Meath game, wasn't it? That was
I don't
the
think
game.
Jim McGuinness or Donegal would have been factoring Kerry at that stage, would they, as potential opponents? Where probably the do, or they're not looking much further than the next game. But nobody really was, were they? Like at that stage. So
Yeah, and like Paddy Clifford was only coming back. He didn't start the Armagh game, and like the Armagh game was sort of 50-50, and I felt with Paddy Clifford not starting, I thought Armagh might age that one. Like, but that 15 minutes after, and again, go back to that 15 minutes, smashed Ethan Rafferty's kick out for 15 minutes, like, and Armagh just couldn't get out, and that was the whole foundation of everything Kerry did last year, and it's whether they can replicate that, or teams can find a way to match it as well. Like, no going in there. I don't think anybody else brought enough aggression to match theirs against them. So that will be a focus for other teams now this year.
So is there a sense then, maybe in the year that it was, that Kerry adapted to the rules better than everybody else as well, and so in that sense that things fell perfectly for them and they were able to utilise that, or is there much more to it?
Well, they adapted to the rules really well. It wasn't quite in the way that some people might think. Like, Kerry didn't kick a huge volume of ball last year, particularly in Croke Park. More so they did against Tyrone a wee bit, because Tyrone went man to man, and then Kerry went, they're going man to man, we'll get out of Davis Road here, and gave them the 40 yards, because that's what Tyrone are allowing us to do. Most of the time they didn't, and they kicked very little, but there's no doubt they adapted to the rules. They have a very underrated fullback in Jason Foley, who's a sprinter. There's not many full forwards can get the better of Jason Foley in a foot race, and it leaves them able to leave themselves that wee bit more exposed too. And their midfield came really good, and David Clifford just, all the pieces came together for him in terms of his shooting, and Sean O'Shea against Armagh in the second half that day.
Well, I would just say, like last year when the new rules were being unveiled, Eamon Fitzmaurice was one of the designers of them, and he was saying that football in Kerry was dying. So since then, they've won the Sam Maguire, and all three, club levels, like junior, intermediate, senior, they've cleaned up. So the new rules are definitely working for Kerry. Like, there's no doubt.
New life into them.
Aye,
Yeah.
Did they win the National League as well?
They did.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not bad. Like,
Not a bad year.
No.
yeah.
And just a final thing on the McGuinness discussion on Saturday. Like, do we believe that managers don't read or listen to what's being said about them? Because that's not my experience. But I'm wondering, like, what do you reckon? Like, are the top guys? Do we really think Jim McGuinness isn't looking to see what's the criticism?
Well, anybody that doesn't listen to Cahair Kane, I don't know, need to go and have a word to themselves. Me or you, possibly.
These are fed up listening to me.
I think it depends. If you say nice things about them, maybe they don't listen.
Is it
but
not more so the other way though?
yeah, you'll find out. Like,
I think it's their job.
say the
to
wrong
listen.
thing. Yeah,
It's their job to read it and listen. And I'm not saying read it as in they don't read it to try and learn from it.
No.
They read it to be
disgusted.
They read it to be annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, or listen to it to be annoyed by it. So you can clip this wee bit, put it in the team WhatsApp group, or play it to the team. Say, this is what they think of us. Like, go right back to Jim McGuinness's very, very first meeting as Donegal manager at the end of 2010, producing the Irish News supplement to the players and the state of the nation in Donegal and wherever they were, 20th or 21st or whatever it was. And this is what they think of us. This is where we are. How the hell are we here? So, you go back to the very first meeting he had, and that was what he used as a form of motivation. So, look, it's their job to probably listen to as much as they can. They're not going to listen to everything or read everything, but they'll find out the bits that they need to hear. Somebody will bring it to them. They might listen to the whole show, and they probably don't. And then they, maybe in their own mind, then it's like, you take the clip out, and that's what they said about us, and then there's no nuance, or there's no one. They just think, and this is not just Donegal. There's every team does this. Like, they think, oh, they hate us. They said that. and ignores all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But look, that's part of management. That's part of finding a wee age and a wee. And look, no doubt, again, back to, that fed into so much to Kerry summer.
I was going to
last
say it was
year.
such a. I was thinking of the similarities there with the Dara O'Shea column, of course, like and Jack's comments were echoed a lot, or were similar to what Jim said. You know, what's he done? Basically, you know, these lads kind of hurlers on the ditch, but you know, where are they?
He need to go and do a bit of
He need to go and do a bit of coaching himself. You know what I mean?
I was
Like
going to
that.
try and do his accent there, but
Go on.
thank
Go on.
thank
Yes,
God
we
that-
go.
No. Yeah.
So, Cahair, Jim McGuinness said last November that you know they had an idea of a good idea of why the game was lost. There are things we certainly need to work on, bring forward into 2026. So, I mean, you touched on the game on Saturday night. You can't read too much into the first National League game of the year and stuff, but as you mentioned, they didn't go zonal for the large majority of that game. I think in the All Ireland final they didn't kick any 2-pointers. They kicked 5 2-pointers. You know, which is something that is interesting because so much focus has been on the defensive side of things with Donegal in the All Ireland final, but the strength that they have forwards capable of they've probably forwards as capable as any panel in terms of utilising the 2-pointer, and just weren't able to execute that, which like in retrospect is quite a surprise.
Hi, and you mentioned the 2-pointers there. It was 5-0 and 2-pointers in the All Ireland final in Kerry's favour. And Donegal,
What they win by 9?
they won by 127 to.
You didn't watch it that much. You need to watch it 9.
23
You need to watch it 9th time.
Can't remember. They won it by whatever 8 or 9 points, but you've made me lose my train of thought now.
No, about the 2 point. About
The
the 2
two
pointers.
pointers. Donegal didn't really carry any threat of 2-pointers that day. They never looked about them. They,
Yeah.
you know, there was opportunities there when there was gaps around the arc in the Kerry defence, and Donegal carried the ball on onto the arc. You know, as opposed to look, Kerry, if they got that gap, they were having to go. They were kicking the 2, and it meant that the scoreline just kept building and building on Donegal, and that goes back to, you know, how effective Kerry's defensive system was. They conceded 4 goals in the whole championship last year, and the way that they defended, they were so compact. Like Tyrone really struggled to break them down. Everybody struggled to break them down. Armagh's goal came off a short kick out that you know was intercepted, and the cornerback should have probably just stepped in and give away the free. But so Kerry, you know, weren't conceding goal chances themselves. Donegal, rather than 2-pointers, had scored goals all season. Were good at it and were looking for them. And once they were then chasing the lead, Kerry just got deeper and deeper and deeper, and it nearly became, you know, the points that Donegal got were you actually watch the second half and you see that a lot of the time Donegal were chipping points because they realised there was nothing else there for them. I better chip a point here because we're not getting in for a goal. We're too far, you know, the 2 points gone because we're now at the edge of the D. And it was like they just kept chipping ones and it wasn't enough and they had no goal threat. So, like, I don't know what they changed. Kieran Thompson was a big loss in that
course,
regard.
in
Like,
that
he's a
sense,
2-point kicker, like, and he was, but they looked about them on Saturday night. Langan kicked a few. Like, Donegal had kicked a few through the year, didn't go mad on them. They were probably the team that didn't really focus that much on them last year.
That surprises me though. Like
Jason
didn't it-
McGee's got a good beat on him now. Mulroney, hasn't he?
Murphy, you know, like I just want, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I think
that,
it was a
because-
confidence in what
in
else
what
they were.
they-
Again,
what
it's
else
that
they were
like
doing,
this is the plan. This is what we're brilliant at. We're going to do it. We're going to run teams into the ground, and they did. Like up until the All Ireland final, they ran everybody into the ground. Barring like Donegal Tyrone and Ballybofey beat them, and they were poor that night. But they ran out over teams, and then they got in for the goals because teams just eventually left the middle open and they scored them. But when Kerry didn't leave the middle open, didn't allow them to do it, it was like frig, you know. In hindsight, yeah, a couple of 2-pointers would have been, you know, allowed us to really reel that back in with a wee bit of energy. You know, instead of like before the Clifford 2-pointer on half time, it was 15-10. If even 2 of Donegal's points in the first half are 2s, then it's 15-12. You know, and it's like that's a different feeling.
Yeah. you keep watching it back, it's going to be the same scoreline like every time. Like.
Donegal aren't going to win it. You're telling me?
Yeah, but I suppose at one point is like, you know, since then all the lads have had a full club season obviously as well. Like, is it going to be different? One thing was unusual yesterday, just to touch on the Armagh game. They scored 127, no 2-pointers at all, and I don't even maybe one attempt. So it's not as if like you know.
Conditions prohibitive to that, or
No, well, there's the typical wind, like you know, one half you've got the wind behind you, but Monaghan got maybe 3 in the second half, but you know, so that was unusual.
So yeah, whether that turns out to be something that Donegal, you know, target more, we'll see as the year goes on. Like another interesting thing, and Cahair mentioned it on Twitter, Andy, but you mentioned Gavin Mulroney there, and he played on Saturday night. Bit nervy at the start, like, but you could see the value in him because he was kicking off both sides. And I just think it's an interesting thing because I was talking to Blaine Hughes a few weeks ago about the oddness of a situation of a goalkeeper, you know, under so much pressure, like as the way you have with Armagh, you know, Ethan Rafferty and Blaine Hughes basically being on a par like that. Goalkeepers don't generally find themselves in that position. Like Roy Beggan doesn't have that now, Morgan doesn't have that. Do we know? And Sean Patton has probably never had that. I mean, I don't think anybody would have really looked at, you know, in the past at Gavin Mulroney as somebody who's going to take that spot. But now I'm wondering when you see, you know, the advantage that Shane Ryan has brings to Kerry by being able to kick off both sides, and now Gavin Mulroney, and obviously coming up, I think he got 4 points on Saturday night. Is there a conversation there, like, or does he now become a you know, properly into the reckoning for that spot?
Well, he certainly has done himself. He deserves the chance, doesn't he? He would have been a contender for man of the match as well in the McKenna Cup final. I would have thought Mulroney, like, once he hits a great ball, doesn't he? Off either side. So yeah, he is a terrific goalie. Like, I think a couple of years ago with Armagh, Cian McGuinness gave Blaine Hughes 3 games, and then Ethan Rafferty 3 games in the league, and then sort of picked one less. Jim McGuinness does that, gives him a run, and it's up to Patton to sort of oust him. But I think he hasn't done anything wrong, does he? Like, if it's his jersey, he should probably keep it until, you know, he's injured or you know, his form dips or whatever it is.
Then Patton just has something that nobody else has. You know what I mean? Too, like, you know, nobody else is capable of putting the ball over the top of an entire team nearly the way he can, you know. So, like, what do you reckon, Cahair, as an expert in this field? With a 30 metre
trying to get it past the 45. My own 45 will be a start. Like the bomb that Patton has, and to the same extent Niall Morgan has. When you go back we're back to the 2 Kerry games last year, they were very ineffective because the nature of the arc has changed the way teams set up, and the midfield line is further back, and so that bomb is not getting out over the top. It's not creating the goal chances in behind because the Kerry midfield were starting 10 yards further back than where they would normally be able to come on to it and attack it. So the space out behind them is not the threat that it was under the old rules. And because you had another, don't want to bore you too much, but you had another 15 yards to press in, so your lines come up by X amount of yards, and then there's more space out the back, and that's what Patton was so good at. Like, go back to the Celtic Park game against, you know, that was the space out behind. That space isn't there to the same extent in Croke Park for goalkeepers, and where Kerry have found their joy over the years is in that, just that ability for Shane Ryan to stretch the field by kicking off his left foot. And it just means that Dublin, like, very, very quickly, Dublin let Mulroney do it twice early on. He got it away, and they realised the goal came off at in the end of the half, and they realised that if we are going to let this man do this, he's going to do it. We give him that pocket, he's going to kick it into that pocket off his left foot. So Dublin then had to stretch right across, and it created big gaps everywhere else for Donegal, and that's the impact of that. It spread Dublin's press the whole width of the pitch. So, and Dublin were never really able to put Donegal in a box. And you actually look at the kickouts that Dublin won off Donegal's kickout. It was when Donegal hadn't got the options on the other side, and Dublin were able to just squeeze it that wee bit tighter. But when Donegal were were in their shape to come the other way, keep hitting this microphone. When Donegal were in their shape to come the other way, it meant that it opened the field right up for them.
Yeah.
And that's like Patton doesn't have that in his locker, or certainly we've never seen any evidence of it off his left foot. And when the bomb is not
And
as
he's
effective,
not comfortable with the kicks, like free kicks from distance or anything. Patton really,
absolutely.
It's not,
Mourinho's free kick, and now Patton has come up and tried them in the past, and he's never really. But again,
And
you look deeper in the summer.
high balls sometimes.
Yeah, look, and Mourinho did pretty well, and as you say, he started a wee bit nervously, but he really settled into it. I definitely think for the first time. Patton's been unbelievable, but for the first time there's a conversation. There's a conversation there now as to who will be Donegal's, because again the other side, just if Murphy is fit, how much he's fit for. Are you going to trust Mulroney on the long range frees over Murphy? You're probably not. So you take that element maybe away, and maybe you look at it and say, just if Michael's not playing, we go with Gavin. If he is playing, and then that could be as fine as that.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap
That's
up.
enough goalkeeping for Monday.
Well, not just goalkeeping. It's probably enough Donegal for a Monday. We're going to finish off very quickly with a bit of a chat about Casement Park, because demolition work gets underway today, and that work's going to take 12 weeks. And then all eyes are on the GA really as to where things go from here. Andy, you wrote a column about this last Friday. What's your feeling on it? Like, what's your hope that happens from here? Because it just seems like a perpetual limbo land.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously my hope is that the build Casement Park, because I think in Ulster, well, throughout the country, obviously GA is massive. I think there should be a stadium in Belfast, to reflect that point. I think Casement there is like it's an eyesore now, and basically the sort of point I was making was originally that Casement Park, so much of it was built, using volunteer sort of labour, and throughout the country as well. If clubs, counties, do their own thing, like raise draws, like what Tyrone clubs are raising millions, aren't they? Like, to buy land and develop their grounds, etc. But that what should be a flagship really stadium, certainly of Antrim and in Ulster, is basically stagnated. Will it ever happen? Yes, they're going to clear the site,
But what are we going to get?
Because planning permission runs out in July. Then actually building that, the cost of it is it's just skyrocketed. And then it's well down the list of priorities for Stormont. It's just basically the lament of, yes, the GA is great when they're doing their own thing, but now they've got involved with Stormont. Obviously, it's a massive money, is a big capital project, and that's why. But that we can't get ourselves organised basically to do it.
And outside of Belfast, Cahair, like the feeling on the project in general as time moves on, like I was talking to somebody yesterday who will remain nameless, but was saying, why not just give the money that's been, build a small scale Corrigan Park, give whatever money is left, small scale Casement Park, give whatever money is left, divide out amongst the other counties and let them upgrade their. Clonus is, not in the best of conditions, for example, and probably lots of county grounds could make a similar argument. That's the kind of thing that people talk about the longer that this goes on.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Martin Sludden, the Tyrone chairman, said a couple of months ago. That's where they're at now.
It wasn't him I was talking.
No, but that reflects. There's definitely that feeling out there now at this point, and there's just a lot baked into that. Like when the project was initially mooted, it was like 77.5 million was the original cost. That's a super far cry from the current figures that have been talked about. And it nearly felt like none of us 77 million rolling about, but it felt like a number in your head. It's like, it doesn't sound too bad. The country can afford 77 million, and if the GA is putting 15 of that, and that's okay. At 250 million, people are saying, hold on a minute, If you
Is,
ever,
is,
when's the last
is it worth it?
when,
Like,
when's the last time you were in a hospital ward? Like, I don't want to go down that line because I've kind of felt that, you know, if it's to be publicly funded, or sorry, if it's to be built, then public funding should definitely make up the vast majority of it, simply for the fact that the GA doesn't go with its hand out very, very often, and it does self-sustain. Like you mentioned, those clubs. Like, look at the facilities in Stewartstown. Look what's happening in old places. It's happening everywhere. Like every county, particularly in the north.
Carrickmore raised $1 million, didn't they? And
Yeah,
their draw,
massive
like
money, absolutely.
£20 tickets.
Yeah. So like the idea that, you know, the GA is coming begging is sort of rails people as well, and that has fed into it's become a real political
course, yeah.
debate. It's not even a sporting thing anymore. It's just politics. It's been for that way for years, but it's just the big issue they have now is that they're sitting. This is the end of January. The deadline for construction is in July. There's still a funding gap. It's a lot smaller than it was. They've gathered a lot of funding, but no contractor is going to take that on with whatever 30, 40, 50 million funding gap still exists. You know, what contractor is going to say, sure, we'll catch you down the line for that 50 million, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, so they need a contractor. In order to get a contractor, they need the full funding in place. And I just worry that the way the thing has gone, they've nearly become so desperate to build it that they'll say, right, we have 220 million. What can we build for 220 million? And if that's a 25,000 seater stadium, well, let's do that. And that would be such a terrible idea. Do not build a 25,000 seater stadium for 250 million, because it's, for a start, you're taking away. If you put money into Clonus to tidy it up a wee bit, get your capacity. Clonus's capacity was 34,500.
Yeah.
In recent years, the Ulster final's been down to 29 with different things, but the capacity, the potential is there to just do a bit of work, get it back up again. Like, you can't tell me that it's for Ulster that it's a good idea to build a 25 and even 26, 27, 28,000 seater stadium at 250 million, as opposed to putting a wee bit back into Clonus. Give Antrim a stadium that is like the athletic grounds, that is like, you know, the stadium that Antrim needs.
15,000.
Yeah, and around that, yeah, but perfect for their size in terms of the fan base that they're able. Like, you know, the only time the Antrim fan base has mushroomed to any level that would exceed that in the last 25 years, the 2009 run, the Ulster final. Like, they had big bandwagon support, and there was bits around the sides of that for a couple of years that they would have maybe touched that, but as it is, they're not, you know. And that's my other thing with Casement, a 30,000 capacity stadium in Antrim. You know, or how much are Antrim going to play there? How much will it actually suit Antrim to play in a stadium of that size, with, you know, empty seats everywhere? Because that's the reality. You know, there's just a huge amount baked into it, and it's just a colossal cost for things that you're not sure if they're good. You know, a lot of this is like, a lot of it is good, but a lot of it you're thinking, is this really good for Antrim?
But also, like, it's good for Ulster GA. It's good for Belfast. I think never. You know, you
That's
can
another
take the
part of
Antrim
conversation.
out of it. I
Andy,
mean,
you've spoken to how many boxers who've dreamt of, or, you know, talked about the possibility of boxing, you know, at Casement Park, or you know, talk of concerts, Garth Brooks coming to Casement Park, you know, whatever it may be. Yeah, I see his eyes lit up now. You see that? Now he's back. He's back in the room.
oh yeah.
You know, so you know, there is a wider, obviously, like a much wider context to it than just Antrim GAA.
And I mean, like, also, I mean, like, the Linfield Phil Windsor every. You know, every
No,
week,
and
you know what I mean?
that's the
And
point, yeah.
if there was a need for, like, a rugby stadium, like, you know, in Belfast, or a football stadium, you'd have to back that. My point is that, you know, Belfast, the city, it should reflect. It needs a piece of GAA in there, like a marquee stadium.
And that's a good point in terms of, you know, equating Linfield and Antrim, you know, in terms of the size and the fan base and the empty seats.
First time it's ever
would
been
be
done.
in only that sense, but
But not the last.
but it's if you build a 30,000 seater stadium, and this has been one of my big questions, what do you actually take there that comes even close? Like the average for Ulster finals, Neil knows my love of keeping attendances, like, but the average for Ulster semi finals, sorry, is around about 18,000.
Yeah, but
so you don't need 30.
Can I just? Is there a factor there of getting the Clonus? Of there's no rail link. Is there a bus link, etc., etc.?
There's a lot of infrastructural things that, and I've
and
seen
I'm
they were
not
all discussed
going to
when
run
the
down
Euro
Clonus
was on the
saying Clonus
table.
is great, but
No.
there is also that it's a difficult place to get in and out of, etc. The facilities don't sort of.
Are you talking about Clonus?
Yeah.
So I thought you were talking about Casement, because there's a lot of those same things apply there. That was a lot of the talk about
Where are you going to park and
Casement
where are
Park,
you
where
going to
people,
be?
But
there's talk of
you
the
know,
glider
that's
coming
what
through.
I'm
But
saying,
look,
a
you
rail
put
link,
30,
a
you
bus link.
put 30,000 people anywhere,
It's
it's
problematic, yeah, of course.
it doesn't matter. So like you can't have a stadium unless you build it in the absolute
Yeah.
asshole of nowhere
Yeah,
that that you can park in the fields around it.
yeah.
Traffic is so Clonus, and I get that, but there's going to be traffic at Casement as well. Casement around that Andytown Road is going to be chaotic for match day. So like all of those things, you're just moving you're not solving the problem, you're just moving it. And obviously you've motorway up to it from a lot of the country, but I do like Donegal have been in a lot of the Ulster finals in recent years. What is 11 of the last 13 Ulster finals, and it's nearly 4 hours from Gidore to Casement Park, like, and then 4 hours back again.
Well,
Like it's not central.
Clonus.
It's not central. Oh, it's not 4 hours.
All right,
It's
3.5.
It's not central. You know what I mean? Casement, Belfast is on the, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying Belfast shouldn't have it, but it's just like when you're spending this amount of money on the thing, you would want to tick all the boxes, or a lot more of the boxes than it just ticks at the minute for making sense for that size of an investment.
Okay, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. I can sense a few itchy feet in the room here. Let's wrap it up and move on. But good chat, and we'll be back next week for the second edition of the Monday Club.
Brilliant. Thank you.